Hey everyone, welcome back to Build. I'm your host, Master Tisfatian, senior writer at Bleacher Report and host of BR's Untold Stories. We've got a special one today. I'm sitting down with NASCAR drivers Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, and Kyle Busch. All four drivers enter the final playoff race of the season with a chance to win the NASCAR Cup Series championship. Leading up to this weekend's Ford EcoBoost 400 at Homestead Miami Speedway, which you can watch Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC. Please welcome the Championship Four.
Yeah, boys. Yeah.
How y'all feeling?
Feeling good.
Doing great.
Doing well.
So you guys have spent all day together?
Yeah.
At what point are you guys going to get tired of each other?
Well, you got to remember.
It's already happened.
Yeah. But you got to remember, every week we're like, what, 5 feet from each other in a motorhome lot? So it's like a traveling circus. We're around each other a lot.
How different is it going to be this Sunday? I know, obviously, 3 of the 4 here have won a Cup Series championship before, but having all 4 of you guys right here in this position with an opportunity to win the Cup Series championship this weekend, I mean, what is that experience going to be like?
Well, you know, for me, it's interesting because really the hardest part is getting to the championship. We race 38 weeks a year. And do everything you can in the first 26 weeks to make the playoffs, and then survive the playoffs in the first 9 weeks, and here you are. So it's a unique opportunity to win a championship. Obviously, it's difficult to get there, but you know, the 3 of us have experienced that. Denny's been involved in it and competitive week in and week out. So it's a unique way to do it, but it's pretty rewarding for the team just to get to this point.
Martin, do you have an opportunity here to win 2 of 3 Cup Series championships? It was a close one last year.
Yeah, a little closer than I wish it could have been. You know, to run second. It's you know, it's just a cool position to be in. You know, it's such a fun sport for us. And as Kevin mentioned, we work so hard all year long. It's a grind. 38 races in 40 weeks, I think it is. We get 2 off weekends, but just to go through that season and put all the work in and have a chance at a championship. I mean, it's all you can really ask for. We've had a great season this year. With 7 race wins, which is incredible, and to win a championship, man, that's what we all dream of. It's what we all started, working towards as kids in racing. Is a dream come true to be able to win a championship. So to be able to do a second one would be amazing, and just pretty excited about the opportunity this weekend.
What do you take out of your experiences from the last 2 years as you entered this weekend's race?
I think just understanding what this week is all about, how to deal with the pressure, the emotions, all the people around, and it's a big moment. But you have to understand how to focus on the things you can control, the things that can put you in position to win that championship. It's tough to do that. So having experience doing that in the past a few times now, I think is definitely something that's good to be on your side.
And Kyle, you've won before, but this race is in Miami, and correct me if I'm wrong, the last 21 have not gone, you haven't been able to win the last 21 in Miami. What is it going to take for you to come out on top on Sunday?
Well, I won Miami 2015 is when we won a championship, and the last 21 races of this season I've been winless, so it's been a little while, but these guys have all been more recent than I have, but overall we've won 4 races this year. We've been very competitive. We've made ourselves to the Final Four with our regular season success and the way that we've been able to do things. So this is my 5th year in a row being able to make it to the championship race, and I've only won it once, so it kind of sucks. Really, and pisses me off. So I want to go out there and change that average and increase my percentage.
Do you care much about your legacy, and as you try to add a second Cup Series championship, and how that can impact the way people view your legacy?
Yes and no. I mean, there's obviously different things that people view me as anyways, but as I view myself, or my circle around me views me, I've been plenty successful in what I've been able to do, and have had a fantastic career. So the second one would obviously just kind of solidify the first, and would love to be able to get not just 2, but 3, 4, 5, however many I can get.
Denny, what is the track in Miami like? How does it race? How does it run? What do you expect on Sunday?
Well, I think the equalizing factor is it doesn't relate much to any of the tracks that we've raced for the first 35 races. It's very, very different in the track configuration. The surface is a lot different, so it grinds the tires quite a bit more. So it's going to be a challenge for sure, and I think there's probably more unknowns going into this week than there has been probably in any other race that we've had this year. Obviously, we can kind of use data and information when we go to tracks that are similar based off of where we were at just a few weeks ago. But this track and everything is going it's going to be a very big wild card, and I don't think anyone up here knows exactly how it's going to all turn out.
When you face a track like that, that's such a wild card. What are the factors that you have to keep in mind, as so many variables can change within a second?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's so many things you have to factor, especially at that racetrack. But everything is one thing that you can control as a driver is making sure you're giving the right information to your crew chief to get your car as fast as it possibly can. That's our job for for Friday and Saturday, and then on Sunday it's on us to get the job done.
Kevin, what would a win mean for you on Sunday?
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, you work so hard to get to this particular point, and for me, this is the 6th year that I've been with Stewart-Haas Racing. I've had the same crew chief and the same guys on my team, and this is my 19th year doing this at the Cup level. So the motivation factor comes from different places, and it's very motivating for me to see those guys get excited about the things that we do and share those experiences with them in Victory Lane and be able to share that as a group. As much as people view us as being the driver and the only one getting the notoriety, we're really the one that probably does the least amount of work. There's probably, at our shop, there's 400 employees working back at Stewart-Haas Racing that are putting the cars together, building the bodies, building the chassis. You got the engine shop that's got another 100 and some people at Roush Yates that build the engine. So there's a lot of people that it takes to make these cars go around the racetrack. And me being a small part of that and being able to celebrate it with a group of guys is kind of like going into a battle and coming out on top against the other guys that are there to beat you. And so when you can share those moments with a group of guys that you're with on the road week in and week out that have become your very good friends, it's something that you're pretty proud of.
How do you keep everyone loose? As you talk about a staff of about 400 employees,
yeah.
How do you make sure to keep everyone loose despite the pressure and despite the stakes?
Yeah, for us, it's it's something that we've been fortunate to experience a lot. Like Kyle said, he's been there 5 years in a row. We've been there 5 out of 6 years in the championship 4. We've had our backs against the wall and had to win races at certain times. I believe that if you're going to win this championship, you're probably going to have to win the race, this particular weekend as well. So, it's we've been through a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and for us, it's pretty easy motivation, just because of the fact that you've made it this far, and you always look at it as it might be your last opportunity, so you never know.
I always like asking this question to subjects I'm interviewing, especially when you're looking at a career-defining moment and opportunity that exists this weekend. I want to go down the row, and I'll start with you, Denny. Why'd you get into racing?
Really started for me at a young age. I went to a NASCAR race when I was 5 years old, and it just took a matter of 2 seconds from when the cars flew by for the first time, and I smelled the fuel and the tires, and the cars go screaming by. Like, instantly, I got a rush, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I said I wanted to be a race car driver. I probably didn't know what I was talking about, but back then you really couldn't get in anything with an engine until you were about 8 years old. So got a go-kart when I was 8, went to a track and just started making laps, and I was hooked from that point forward.
When you reflect back on these moments and you look at these opportunities that exist this weekend,
I mean, it's there's probably very few people in the world that are able to get to the highest level of whatever profession they set out to do when they were a kid. We have that opportunity this weekend. These guys have accomplished it. I have not won a Sprint Cup or a Monster Energy Cup title yet. So, I've had a few opportunities here and there, but you just got to maximize the opportunity. And we have that chance this weekend. Just try to do the best you can. I mean, you got to live with the result. And like Kevin said, the work and the accomplishment is us being on this stage right now. We've put together a great season, and being here on the stage, the war has been won. It's the battle this weekend that really matters.
Okay. Yeah, for me, mine started when I was 5. I got my first go-kart for kindergarten graduation, and wound up making laps in a dirt field, for a while, and that evolved into racing at my local go-kart club, and I grew up in Bakersfield, California, so it wasn't typical for somebody in California to come to NASCAR until Jeff Gordon came and things started to change as to where the drivers were coming up from. But my hometown was a pretty big racing town. My dad didn't drive. He was a fireman and wound up working on cars on the side, and he thought that was something that we would enjoy as a hobby. And we treated it as a hobby until, I got out of go-karts and couldn't race cars until you were 16 at that particular point, and I just progressed all the way through the ranks. And really, I went to college. I went to the local junior college for about 6 weeks, and I told my mom, I'm like, I don't know that this is for me.
Same for you.
Yeah, I don't know that this is for me. And so I actually took a job at one of the race teams as a mechanic, and hoping that I would get the opportunity to drive, and wound up getting the opportunity to run a couple races, and that evolved into a full-time job. So I left the junior college and went to work as a general mechanic for $25,000 a year, hoping that it would all work out, and it did. So
Look at you now.
yeah, worked out fine.
What about you, Martin?
Yeah, a similar story to these guys. It's something interesting about racing. It's a family sport, and like these guys, I got into racing with my family. My dad was a driver. He was, he obviously he didn't race professionally, but it was his hobby, and it's what he did on weekends. So I grew up as a little kid going to the racetrack, and some of my earliest memories of having the time of my life were at a racetrack, watching the cars go around. As Denny mentioned, you hear the cars and you see the cars flying by, and you smell the fuel and the tires and all those things, and it becomes like just this infatuation of, I want to do this when I, someday, sometime, right now if I can, but you're not old enough as a little kid. So talked my parents into getting me a go-kart when I was 11 years old. I started asking for it when I was 10. A year later, I finally convinced them that I needed it or could do it, and started working at my dad's shop when I could to make some money to pay for things. They didn't want to just give it to me and say, here you go, you know what I mean, pay for everything. So gave me a job, made me work for it, all those things. And just amazing to think back to those days of, that's where it started, and look where we are now. So pretty cool story, but a lot of fun. And, I think most kids get into racing through their family.
Kyle?
Yeah, actually very similar to Martin. My dad was a local racer at home back in Las Vegas. That's where I was born and raised and grew up. And then when my brother was old enough, he got started. He got behind the wheel and was racing a little bit. And then as that was happening, him and I are 7 years apart, so I was working on the cars in the garage and helping them build them and tearing them apart and servicing them and all that sort of stuff. And then, doing school stuff, everything as normal kid would do. And once it was time for me to start racing, I was 13. I kind of got a little bit of a late start, I guess, comparatively to these guys, but enjoyed it. When I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old, the bug hit me that, man, this is something I want to do, and I want to be a race car driver. I remember watching Jeff Gordon was my hero, and he would just kind of come on the scene and was really good early on, and kind of caught my eye that I want to be that guy, So really interesting just the way that the family dynamic comes out. And my dad was always he was a dealership mechanic for years, worked on cars. His dad was a dealer owner and had a dealership of cars and stuff. So it's just been in the family for generations now.
And I talked to you about the trackway in Miami, but I'd like to hear from you three as well in terms of the challenges and the strategy behind, how to navigate such a complicated and tricky track. I mean, what is your approach when you have so many variables that can change? And I'll start with you, Kyle.
Yeah, it's like Denny said, it's its own kind of layout. There's no other track that we have that's similar to this type of layout with the asphalt and everything else. And so, sometimes, more times than not, the runs start around the bottom of the track, and as the runs kind of progress and tire wear happens and the pace slows down, you kind of start trending yourself higher. And there's some guys, man, they rip the wall all the way around, and they're just inches off of it the whole distance, and they're killing it. They're fast, and so it's a lot of risk versus reward in that instance. You can slip just that least little bit and damage your car and slow it down. So you've got to be really mindful of all that.
With the stakes as high as they are, Martin, is it smart to play as the risk-reward game, or do you try to be more conservative considering the track and considering the stakes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're really just trying to position yourself for the end of the race, and you want to get to the end and have a fighting chance. So you don't want to, there's some guys out there that aren't in the Final Four that are willing to run that inch or two off the wall, as Kyle mentioned, during the day when it's still hot out. 100 miles into the race, or something, probably one of us wouldn't be doing that. We're going to be like, all right, we need to wait a while. We need to make sure we're around at the end because there's a lot on the line. So you got to manage that risk versus reward for sure. And Homestead is definitely one of the toughest tracks out there. It's a fun track. It's fast, but it's also really, really technical, really challenging. It's a lot of fun.
Kevin, how do you navigate those other drivers who will want to be more risky and in many ways maybe perhaps even reckless? And how do you control that while also keeping your mind?
Well,
at
this point of the year, everybody has a different agenda. Obviously, our four agendas are the same. We want to win championships for our team, and you're not racing for stage points in the first two stages, and you're not trying to worry about any of that. You're trying to keep yourself positioned and keep your car rolling until the end of the race. So there's a number of different things to navigate with all the new rules and things that we got this year. And I think as you go to Homestead, being that unique racetrack, this is not a racetrack that we really know exactly what we need to do to the cars. So you have so many things that you have to navigate. You have a weekend that is totally abnormal to any of the things that you do on a week-to-week basis because of all the media commitments and coming to New York to do media. So it really, you have to know going into this week that it's going to throw a different curveball at you than you've been used to seeing, just because of the fact that you have more obligations and you're going to be out of your routine this weekend. So there's a number of things that you have to navigate along with the unique racetrack and the new rules and all the things that go with it.
Denny, how you handling this week?
I mean, I'm on house money. I just got my way into this Final Four here in the last week. I mean, I think that we're going to be pretty loose, to be honest with you. Obviously, we've had a great season. This was the goal, is to get to the Final Four. And I don't think, it's fair to judge your success of a season based off this one race. I mean, sure, this is what it's all about, right? But the work that gets put in is what gets you here. And so I think that, these guys obviously have won it. I haven't. So, I mean, there's also a lot of things to prove from my standpoint. So I think that, we're going to do the best we can, live with the outcome either way, but, certainly won't come from a lack of effort.
What will a championship prove for you?
I would say just validation, to be honest with you. I think that, I've been labeled as the next best, the best best of the group that has not won a championship. At least you're the best of something. You don't want to be labeled as the worst of anything, but obviously it just takes you to the next level. I mean, being a champion of this sport means you have beat the best out there, and there's no question if we were to win this weekend, I feel confident that we beat the best. These three up here, like they have told you about, have been in this situation now many, many times over the last few years, and that's not by accident. It's because they are the best, and I would take a lot of pride in beating them.
Mentally, how have you handled that year after year when people have described you as the next best?
Yeah, I mean, I've been more content, over the last probably year of being in the position I'm in, not letting results define who I am personally, but ultimately, I mean, this is what I've worked for ever since I've been a kid. So you want to accomplish what your goal is, and that's to win a championship. So I'll do all I can, but it's not going to be easy against these guys.
How are you guys keeping loose? I know you guys are in New York doing the media stuff, and I spoke to you about how you're keeping your crew loose. But as you mentioned, the schedules have changed. This is such a different week in terms of how you guys prepare and the traveling that you guys have to do and the media preparation. What are you guys doing to try and stay loose and relaxed and stay as much as a routine as you possibly can?
Well, for me, it's really, I know it's probably not the right thing to say, but it's really about checking boxes, trying to just do everything that you have to do. Being in this position before, you have to know going into it that you have to check those boxes because it's not your normal race week. So I think having that frame of mind and knowing and being through those types of things before allows you to enjoy the things that you're doing instead of being frustrated about having to go do things because, one day, you're not going to do this forever. You'll look back and say, man, I wish I would have enjoyed that a little bit more. And I tell my friends all the time, they're like, man, I'm sorry for your weekend. I'm like, don't ever be sorry for me. I race cars for a living. So I could have a real job and it'd be a lot worse. So I've tried to enjoy things and be a little more low key about what I do and don't want to do, just because, hey, it's you're having the privilege of racing for a championship and racing cars for a living, so need to enjoy it more. And I think my 7-year-old son reminds me of the enthusiasm that comes with racing and the things that we do all the time. When I look at him and see that excitement and things that he sees of me being on the racetrack or him riding his go-kart, really allows me to say, you know what, I was that kid once, and I need to make sure that I enjoy it.
Real quickly, down the road, we have about 30 seconds here before we start opening up to questions. I want to ask you guys, if you win, what's the first thing you're going to do? I'll start with you.
Right after the checker flag?
Yeah, what's the first thing that you have in mind after you win?
Man, it's celebrate. Have a good time. Have fun. Get with your team guys and start the party, right?
No better place in Miami, right?
No better place.
Yeah, for sure. crack a cold one.
Yeah, us having a Busch beer sponsorship, the party will start early.
Hey, easy plug-in right
That's
there,
right.
What about you?
Find my kids. Give them a big hug.
Beautiful. We've got a couple questions here. We've got 3 from the audience, and we've got 1 from Twitter as well. We'll start the one from Twitter from Philip Louis 01. And he asks, what will you each miss the most about Homestead Miami being the championship deciding race, knowing that this is the final time? Here we go down.
Yeah, I think that Homestead lends itself to a unique place, like we talked about. It's the only one on the schedule. We only go there once. The line moves around the racetrack all day long. You can race 3-4 wide around there sometimes. We'll see how exciting it is this weekend with this new package. But, I think that's what we're most going to miss, because we go to Phoenix next year, and we just ran Phoenix this past week, and it's a bit more strugglesome to be able to have good side-by-side racing and passing.
That's a good question. For me, I do love the racetrack, and the once-a-year thing I think that Kyle mentioned is important. But I've always stayed down in Miami for a week after the race. Stayed down there in a motorhome. I got some family down there, have Thanksgiving with them. So I'll probably miss that, just staying down in Florida, chilling out, kind of relaxing. It's been a long season, and you get to Homestead and you get that race done. You're like, whew, oh my God, it's finally over. And it was just cool to be able to hang out down there in the good weather and have Thanksgiving with family.
I went to Arizona State. I'll just say this much: Phoenix isn't bad to chill for a week or two this time
That's
of
true.
year.
Amen.
But there's no water in Phoenix.
That's true. That is
to
true.
Be on the ocean or on the bay or whatever.
that is
Well, and I think that the unique part about the not going to Homestead is the race moving around and going to another big city, whether it's a good race or a bad race. In the end, doesn't even matter in my opinion. I think it's really about the event and the notoriety that it brings to a different market, a different racetrack, attracts new race fans. That particular market in Phoenix will thrive on that championship race for years to come because of the notoriety and things that come with that championship event. So Homestead is a great racetrack, but I think as you look long term for NASCAR and our sport, going to those different markets for the championship race is going to be very impactful in the things that we do for each individual racetrack and exposing new people to our sport.
I echo everything he just said. I think it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's about the event itself. I totally agree with that. I think Phoenix has earned the right to host the final race. They've spent a lot of money on their facility, making it first class. The area in itself around Scottsdale and Phoenix is an area where they host other really big, significant events and sporting events. So I think it makes sense to go back there. The thing as drivers will miss is that I believe that most will say that Homestead is very much a driver's track. With the way that you can manipulate your car based off of the line that you choose to run, I feel like we have a bigger impact in our finishing position as drivers there.
Now we've got 3 audience questions. We'll start off with the first one.
Hey, now you guys all have pretty much the same racing background coming up, but ask a hypothetical. If the world were to end tomorrow, do you have a racetrack or a discipline that you would want to do one more race at?
Wow, that's a good question. You know, for me, I took over Dale Earnhardt's car when he died in 2001, and for me, I went to RCR to race with Dale. So, you know, I think for me, it would be fun to race alongside him, starting at the Daytona 500 and experience those things for the first time with him there and at the first race and our sport's biggest race. I think that would be something that, you know, I've been fortunate to experience a lot of things in my career, but to do that one thing correctly as it was laid out would be one thing that I would want to go back and do differently.
I think for me, I mean, different discipline to me, I think of Formula One, you know, and having a shot to be able to go over there and give that a test. I wished I could have done that a few years ago, but wasn't able to quite make the dates work out. But overall, that's just something that's different that I've never been within an open wheel cockpit, and I think it'd be pretty awesome.
I hope we still get to see that. That'd be dope to see.
Yeah. Could still happen, right?
You could always do the Indy
I don't know if the
500.
F1 thing can happen. The Indy thing can happen a lot
like to see
easier.
that.
Running the Indy 500, that could happen easier.
Yeah.
For me, I think it'd be going back to my local track, and there's a big race every year, Thanksgiving, called the Turkey Derby, and someday I plan on running that again in a modified, and that'd be definitely the one I would do.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Mine's a mix of both. I'd like to drive a Formula One car, but when I'm done racing at this level, I definitely like Martin. There's a couple big late model races I want to go back and run and give back to that community.
We've got 2 more questions.
I just want to say that each of you are a role model in your own certain way, and I hope to race against you guys one day. My question to you is, who do you guys consider to be the biggest threat to win each week, every time you go to a track?
You know, for me, it's been different this year just because of the rules and the things that have happened. And we've had a lot more peaks and valleys, you know, for us in the performance and the accidents or things that happen on the racetrack seem to affect, you know, where you finish and where you start, and the consistency of just having those solid top 5 finishes or being in contention to win has been different for us this year. So, you know, I think, you know, for us, the rules package has really created something that has been more unique for us as a team this year.
Yeah, he did a really good job of not answering your question. But in short, what he's saying is like it's last year, the year before, it was so easy to just pick Martin or Kevin because it was every week they were the top 2 guys, top 3 guys, whatever, us 3, the big 3, right? And this year, like Kevin was saying, is it was so up and down. Like one week you'd hit it and you'd be the dominant guy, and the next week you'd go to and you'd finish 10th. Like you couldn't get out of 10th place, you know? So it's very, very weird. But as far as the driver crew chief combination that's been the strongest over the past couple of years, I'd have to go with Martin. He's one of the guys that you always look at each and every week to show up to emulate.
I think these 3 guys right here, you know, if you look at the wins across the board, across the series this year, I believe this is the most wins, the 4 of us. So these guys are always at the front. They're always tough competition. And for me, it's extra difficult because Denny and Kyle are my teammates, so we share everything. I know exactly what they have. They know exactly what I have in our setups. Yeah, you do. You do. I promise. So that's a difficult thing, right? We work together. We have meetings on Monday. We talk about our cars, how they felt, things we liked, things we didn't, things we need to work on. And that's every single week, you know. So our teams work together. They build their cars together. They understand. We all understand what each other's doing. So then you have to show up on the weekend and share all that stuff, and then on Sunday figure out how to beat them. It's really, really difficult because they're 2 of the best in the business.
Yeah, I mean, week in, week out. I mean, I think statistics would say probably Kevin as far as, you know, speed goes. I just think that obviously they've got a great combination that started 5 years ago, I believe, with him and Rodney, and I just think that they you know, they find a way to win when they really need to win. They find a way. So it's just, you know, my teammates, like Martin says, it's going to be very difficult because you're racing against essentially the same thing. But for me personally, I don't know. I mean, like these guys talk about, it's going to be so unpredictable. I think that this is the most unpredictable championship race that we've ever had.
It'll make for good appointment television on Sunday afternoon. We've got one more audience question left.
How you doing? Dave from Belmore. Twitter kind of took my question, but
You got another one.
with Miami being, well, this is the last year for Miami being the championship race. Do any of you have a tribute to Miami after you win?
I don't. We like to go fishing in their pond in the infield. So, you know,
a fishing pole.
Huh?
Bring out a fishing pole.
That's right. You know,
Yeah, we do.
no tributes.
No.
I don't have anything like that. I would venture to guess that it's not the last time we'll race our championship race in Homestead. I think that cycle and that rotation seems to have been started. You know, and I would definitely say that the championship cycle runs through Miami again at some point.
I agree. I don't think it's the last time. I think it will probably be the last time in our era of racing. But eventually, I agree. It will make its way back to Miami. But just like the NFL does, you know, they rotate around new stadiums, big markets. I think it will make its full turn. But it's gonna venture around to these markets that have really significantly put a lot of money into the racetracks to make sure they're modernized, and it'll take some time for Miami to get there.
You gonna go?
I just hope I get to leave burnouts all the way around that place. I mean, that's really all that'd be my tribute. Just lay a lot of rubber down.
Love it.
Yeah, when I won the championship back in 2015, it was a good celebration, a lot of fun, left some burnout marks, all that sort of stuff, and then took the team over to the motorhome and cracked open a few beers and stuff like that, and then a couple of them went for a late night swim across that pond. So
Wow.
maybe we'll do that again.
How much do they drink to do that?
Just a little bit.
Probably a lot because there's alligators in there.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Yeah.
We'll stick to the fishing pond. Right? Let's stick to the fishing pole. Bring some-
Same pond. Same pond.
Allegedly.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you again to the Championship 4 for coming out. And again, you guys can watch. One of these 4 will become the winner of the Cup Series Championship on Sunday, NBC. Please stay tuned. Thank you guys again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
There you go.